Viscerafest, the shooter where you play as a lady ripped straight out of a dentist's nightmare, has finally bunny hopped into early access, on a mission to give us that old school FPS fix with perhaps a bit more punch than expected. Could this be our next boomer shooter obsession? What's up everybody, I'm Kirk, and today we are taking a look at the first chapter of Viscerafest. But before all that, please remember to subscribe and ring that bell for more videos about characters who think very highly of themselves.
I am the god of destruction!
Alrighty, let's begin.
I'm gonna have to put you on hold.
Viscerafest is a retro-style single-player arena FPS set in a colorful sci-fi world where you play as an adorable psychopath with a heart full of love and a face covered in blood. It is currently being developed by Acid Man Games, Fireplant Games, and set to be published by 1C Entertainment. This early access build provides the first of 3 planned chapters, featuring 8 levels, with 23 being the target for the full release. To many of you, Viscerafest probably looks like your typical retro-style first-person shooter, and in many ways it is. But this throwback has a little more bite to it, and I'm not referring to the heroine's shark-like teeth.
Let's start from the top. Name's Caroline, 27 years old, arms enthusiast, full-time mercenary, and girlfriend to a wonderful man named Athens Fetter.
You play as a deranged, bloodthirsty mercenary who is just as cute as a button. When she's not eviscerating her enemies, Caroline is in a committed relationship with her alien boyfriend. In fact, Caroline is ready to take things to the next level and make an honest man out of her man by popping the big question. The problem is, Caroline can't afford the ring her main squeeze deserves. However, she soon learns of a rather sizable bounty on an alien named Chromune, who is a part of an organization conducting illegal science experiments. This is just the solution Caroline needs.
So the plan's simple. Break in, kill the target, collect my pay, and get home in 3 days. Just in time for date night.
Viscerafest has a lot of personality, due in no small part to its protagonist. I really got a kick out of Caroline. To me, she was one of the more entertaining FPS heroes I've gotten to play in some time. I guess the easiest comparison would be to characters like Harley Quinn or perhaps Tiny Tina from the Borderlands series. But with Caroline, I got the distinct impression this was a girl raised on a steady diet of Star Trek, Doom, and Duke Nukem 3D. A kindred spirit.
Suck it down!
And in the tradition of most retro shooters, she spits out line after line of humorous dialogue that really lets her personality shine.
Shut up and die, dirtbag!
Caroline's adventure in being a murderous menace was honestly enough to keep me entertained, but without giving anything away, Viscera does throw in a plot thread that hints that there is much more going on than meets the eye, and it definitely has me eager to see what's in store for the upcoming chapters.
Rip and tear, baby!
Visually, Viscerafest goes for the retro pixelated look of the games that inspired it. A common but solid direction. Unlike the browns, blacks, grays, and reds of other recent retro shooters, Viscera goes for bright pinks, purples, greens, and whites. It's a more lively aesthetic that matches the energy and personality of the game and its hero. Speaking of energy and personality, the game's soundtrack is a familiar sounding, but welcome soundscape of guitar riffs and electronica, which fits this shooter's sci-fi world beautifully. The game's cutscenes, made up of still images with a hint of animation, are gorgeous. The art here is just fantastic. The use of color, the line work, the design of the characters, I love it. Where is this comic book and how can I pre-order it? Indeed, Viscera's in-game graphics look authentically retro, but they were a bit hit and miss for me. From what I can tell, it takes inspiration not so much from Doom and Duke, but rather titles like Blake Stone, Corridor 7, and Wolfenstein, evident by sprite work that's a little more rudimentary than what we're used to. I'll be honest, the sprite work I wasn't totally in love with. Certain assets look a little too under-detailed and flat for my taste. Yes, I know they are physically flat, I just mean in terms of color and detail. Up close, you can notice some decent detail in the enemies, but these tend to blur together or are lost entirely due to the use of lighter colors for shading and a lack of distinct dark outlines. But to be fair, the aesthetics do a good job of serving the gameplay, which one could argue is more important. The lighter, brighter colors of the enemies make them stick out against the purple, crimson, and blue backgrounds, making it easier for the player to spot and identify them quickly, which, as you'll soon see, is crucial for this game. I also appreciate that the game has some gory dismemberments and blood splatter. Good damage animations will always help the shooting feel more impactful. It's very important. While the environments stick to a strict color theme, the devs did a good job of not making them feel too monotonous. There's a variety of architecture in these maps, with plenty of bright neon lights to help break things up and, more importantly, help the player navigate. If I had to be critical, there were some areas that felt empty and bland to me, and as with the sprite work, a bit under-detailed. But truthfully, these areas were the minority. Ultimately, I could sit here and get picky about the visuals until I'm blue in the face. But at the end of the day, the graphics of this indie effort do a solid job of conveying the game's personality and complementing the gameplay.
Would you kindly die?
Viscerafest has all of the elements you'd expect out of a retro arena FPS. It's blistering fast with controls that push for precision, with bunny hops that feel perfect and dashing that would make the Slayer envious. And its arsenal? Meaty and destructive. Classics like the pistol are here, along with a few varieties of shotgun, dual machine guns that can stun lock, a rocket launcher, and a gun that traps enemies in a poison cloud, slowly draining their health, designed for the tankier foes. For the most part, it's your standard shooter arsenal, but the shooting is responsive and feels good, and all the weapons have a more rapid, punchier fire rate, like this delicious shotgun right here. All of the ingredients are here and they have been used beautifully. But what sets this game apart from other shooters is its focus on acute, punishing challenge that demands a high amount of skill from the player, along with strategic thinking and resource management. Viscera wants to kill you quickly. New players will find death a common companion in their first hour of the game. These colorful aliens shoot fast and accurate, with damage that will rip chunks out of your health. Good rule of thumb, as soon as you've seen them, they've already shot at you. Making things trickier, even if a new player manages to live through the volley of attacks, they'll discover they barely have enough ammo to clear that room. Oh, and the cherry topper? Saves are limited. Players can collect beacons, which they can deploy anywhere, which saves their progress. It's a similar system to the one featured in Wrath: Aeon of Ruin. This adds the stress of whether or not the spot you've chosen for your beacon is the right one, or if you're putting yourself in a nightmare of repeating progress over and over. Viscera is a tough cookie, and it's gonna get even a seasoned FPS player sweating. And yeah, it can be frustrating, but is it unfair? No. Like any good game that treasures high difficulty, Viscera provides the player with all the tools they need to be successful. They just have to be willing to get good with said tools. Ugh, that was smart. These aliens may shoot fast with deadly accuracy, but their weakness is a moving target. If the player is mindful about staying constantly on the move and get comfortable with jumping and shooting, they'll find themselves weaving around projectiles like a feather on the wind. Enemies also have clear tells and specific noises for their attacks. You will always have warning, even if that warning is a split second. Yeah, the ammo is surprisingly scarce, but Caroline has a powerful punching melee attack that can be charged up for a more powerful hit, and melee is mapped to the right mouse button, which should give you an indication of how important it is. Low-level enemies can be jibbed with just one punch, making them the perfect targets for splatter.
This is my boomstick!
This is where strategy comes into play. In battle, the player has to figure out which enemies need their precious ammunition and which enemies need a good smack, so they don't find themselves out of ammo at a misopportune time. I should also mention that jibbed enemies will always drop health pickups, which gives even more value to your melee but also your explosive weapons.
Guns don't kill people. I do.
Trial and error, well, trial and death, is very much part of this game. Each enemy has their own specific, unchanging attack patterns, which have their strengths but also their weaknesses. For example, these grayish-brownish brutes with unicycle legs who shoot out a wave of devastating projectiles. A formidable foe indeed, however, its aim is based on the player's elevation, so a quick hop is all you'll need to neutralize them. The game wants you to learn these attack patterns like the back of your hand, and to get to that point means a lot of crushing deaths. But when you do get it down, the satisfaction of leapfrogging through these rooms and liquefying these colorful sprites with confidence will make all those restarts worth it. Stay on the move, prioritize the right enemies, use the right weapon, and be mindful of their attack patterns. Now, some of you may be thinking, wait a second, aren't these the best practices for every retro first-person shooter? Yes, they are. The difference though is that these practices aren't the best way to play Viscerafest, they're the only way to play Viscerafest, and you have to do them at greater speeds. This is the prime retro shooter experience, more concentrated and harder hitting. If I had to describe it another way, if playing Dusk is like drinking a pint of a strong double IPA, then playing Viscerafest is like taking a shot of whiskey. And like any good shot, sure, it's not going to be pleasant at first, but eventually you're going to be smiling. And in case some of you are hung up on the limited saves, it's not my favorite thing either, but Viscera is good about providing a beacon right when you'll need it. On top of the fact that being able to save whenever and cheese through the difficult portions would go against the spirit of the game. Viscerafest is awesome, and I really enjoyed it. In fact, it made for a much-needed, pleasant weekend of hot pink carnage. While I felt the graphics needed more polish, the mechanics are razor-sharp and an absolute blast, and I think the main character is soon to be a favorite among shooter fans. Some gamers might be turned off by the difficulty and the trial-and-error nature, but I really feel that this game gets right at the heart of what makes this type of game so much fun and addicting, and I think all retro shooter fans should keep it on their radar. As for the early access, once again, at the moment, Viscera features only the first of the game's planned 3 chapters, with 8 levels to rampage through. This is right in line with how most early access indie shooters have been released. But these 8 levels are on the short side, especially on a repeat playthrough when you know what you're doing. If you're a player who has the skill for it, Viscera can be beaten in an afternoon. Perhaps longer if you try and find all the secrets and collect all the things. For those who are cautious with the early access model, this might not be enough to jump in early. However, for the ones who were already excited for this game and are eager to support it, or if you're a gamer who is jonesing for a colorful challenge, then by all means give this game a look and get acquainted with Caroline. And of course, be sure to check back to this channel for future updates on Viscerafest. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to subscribe, like, and ring the bell for notifications on future uploads. It is a massive help for this channel. Also, be sure to come say hi in the Kirk Collects Discord listed in the description below. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.